for those questions. We now move to the next speakers. It's these two speakers that represents the Railway Safety Regulator, and they're going to be talking to us on human factors related issues. And the first one is Miss Kebaabetswe Tlhoaele, who is the Safety Inspector at the RSR. Kebaabetswe holds a Bachelor of Honors degree in Human Kinetics and Ergonomics, as well as a Master's degree in Ergonomics. She will be talking to us on nutrition of safety critical grade employees. And soon after, we will have Ms. Tunya Matsie, a technical specialist at the Rail Safety Regulator as well. And she also has similar qualifications in human kinetics and ergonomics, as well as the master's degree in ergonomics. Kiba, if you're ready, over to you.
I'm ready, Mr. Sister. Sister, thank you so much.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Okay, can you see my slides?
Not yet. Maybe get the other screen.
Okay.
Yes, we can now.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. All protocol observed. Thank you all for taking the time to listen to my presentation, and also on a topic that is very close to my heart. My name is Kebaabetswe Tlhoaele, and I'm currently the Railway Safety Inspector with the RSR. As inspectors, we are often considered the eyes and the ears of our entity, and we're privileged with understanding matters on the ground that may require some consideration and further research. My presentation is in fact broad, but we are considering the nutrition of safety critical and safety related grade employees and the role this might play on their performance and eating habits. Therefore, in a nutshell, I'll just be discussing a few aspects on what literature says in terms of the impact shift work has on the individual's eating habits, their biological outcomes, and basically how COVID-19 pandemic lockdown has affected lifestyle changes. Just briefly touching on safety culture and the problems identified within literature, but most importantly, just outlining the proposed ergonomics program to address some of these matters that are arising. We are aware of the imperative role that the rail system plays in terms of the economic benefits as well as the freedom of movement for commuters and passengers alike. However, we also know of the many challenges that the railway system has faced, right from political factors, streaming right down to the individual factors. Unfortunately, however, there is limited research that exists in terms of understanding the employees within the South African context and how their eating habits are affected when they are on shift work and how this might impact on their performance overall. We are aware of the rising health risk that is happening within South Africa, for instance, obesity and type 2 diabetes. Currently, the obesity rate in Africa shows that South Africa is ranking third in the top 10 countries with a 28.3% obesity rate. The issue of type 2 diabetes remains a point of discussion, such that even the South African Treasury seeks to impose a sugar tax. This proposed action taken by the South African government alongside with other countries such as the UK or Ireland have resorted to imposing this levy on sugar beverages since the 1st of April 2018. South Africa is currently the 8th highest consumer of sugar in the world, and whether to impose the sugar tax on South Africa still remains open for debate. A safety management system was conducted just before the coronavirus pandemic on a pairway and electrical departments. Compelling findings were seen where, for instance, the physical weight, body mass index, and non-communicable diseases were found amongst a group of male and female employees ages between 20 to 40 years of age. 44 of that sample within the pairway department were deemed fit for duty, but were however placed on a weight management program. And similar findings were found for other departments such as the train operations department and signaling department. What we were aware of as was that the occupational medical practitioner did everything as per required in the requirements, indicated the health risks, indicated the weight status of the individuals, as well as the challenges, and referred them for further health examinations, as well as provided the recommendation in terms of a weight management program. However, upon conducting sort of a gap analysis after the human factors management standard, what was clear is that there was not a single approach to lower the health risks of employee, except for a recommendation that was provided. Secondly, the weight management program was not compulsory. There was a lack of participation, particularly because the employees were mentioning that they could not afford the services of a professional dietitian, and the operator's side provided access to sugary drinks, processed and unhealthy snacking options on sale for the employees, which means that all the initiatives taken in terms of the human factors management standards and approaches were counterintuitive and therefore not necessarily easily absorbed or utilized. Therefore, the research expectations was thus to understand the employees and their eating habits and the correlation this may have on their work performance in COVID-19 times, how COVID-19 pandemic has impacted on lifestyle changes, as I said, safety culture, and also the proposed ergonomics program that embraces a participatory approach or self-administrated in support of already existing medical surveillance programs that are administrated within the operator's site. Just to show you here, this is a diagram that shows the impact of shift work that has on individuals. So for instance, you have safety critical grade employees and safety related employees who are then placed on shift work or night work, and their circadian rhythm, also known colloquially as their biological clock, is disrupted and their sleeping patterns is disrupted. This impacts on their eating habits throughout their working shift, as well as biological and behavioral outcomes. There are many factors that have been found in literature, which I'm not going to divulge all of them. But for instance, shift work has been found to disrupt the circadian rhythm, as I stated, as well as the fact that it impacts on an individual's physical weight. They tend to gain more weight because of the fact that they're skipping healthier meals during meal times. For instance, also, the shift workers have an increased food consumption versus those who are on rotating or daytime work. And for instance, they participate in less physical activity and have higher meal intake and have a higher energy dense food and higher increase in terms of snacking. So I'll just skip over that. In terms of then the overall shift work impact on their biological outcome, for instance, they are not able to absorb insulin properly and have a higher fat intake. In terms of the COVID-19 pandemic, what we found is that the COVID-19 pandemic has affected individuals psychologically, spiritually, and emotionally. And we've also seen a number of job losses in Europe. And there's been reports as well within the South African context. This has been impacting on their stress, feelings of loneliness and uncertainty, as well as the fact that there's been an increase in physical activity and alcohol consumption in some parts of the world, and in other instances, a decrease in other parts. But what is of certainty is that weight changes have been absorbed since the COVID-19 pandemic. So what are the problems really? The problems then is that, for instance, there's inadequate canteen facilities on sites, which provides greater reliance on tuck shop use and having less healthier food options. The canteen facilities provide unhealthier snacking food items, and also there's a lack of implementation in terms of the physical activity, especially for shift workers who are working nighttime, and there's a likelihood of reduced cognitive performance because of such things. Therefore, the impacting safety culture practices where nutrition is concerned and unhealthy eating habits should be considered and should be made more accessible within the workplace. The comparative analysis then shows us that when doing the human factors management standard, and what literature shows us is that there's been a lack in terms of the implementation of weight management programs. Literature also finds this, as well as the implementation of physical activity practices. And also the sites provide unhealthier snacking options, and likewise the literature also says the same. As been said before in other previous presentations, we have the ergonomics regulations, which was gazetted on the 6th of December 2019, which basically just support all the already existing medical surveillance practices and is further explained in terms of the regulations 6 and 8 within the document of the clause. And we basically find that the ergonomics program just supports in what is suitable in terms of policies and processes that should be taking place. It enhances and cultivates the medical surveillance program, and it should be self-sustaining from the top right to the bottom. I will not necessarily delve into the ergonomics risk assessments, although these are the possible risks that can occur once the ergonomic risk assessment has been done, simply just to identify, analyze, evaluate, and prioritize certain risks within the organization. So in this context, seeing that we are finding risks that are associated with medical health risks, we are proposing for the medical ergonomics program to look at solutions such as education and awareness on the reversal of obesity and diabetes specifically, the reduction of food consumptions at nighttime for shift workers by providing a balanced diet intervention, the reduction of consumption of saturated fats and soft drinks, adopting a more appropriate meal intakes, providing alternative snacking options, the inclusion of physical activity intervention, particularly for shift workers, and the inclusion for nighttime rest, as well as maybe doubling up on shift duties. This program would be sort of amalgamated into a mobile application phone, so it could be utilized both at home and in the workspace, seeing that many employees now are expected to work from home.
Okay, time to wrap up.
Okay, and in conclusion, basically, it would just be a mobile application where the ergonomics program could be utilized for employees to do it by themselves, having simple solutions specifically made for shift workers. Thank you all for taking the time to listen to my presentation.
Thank you, Keba, for that presentation. The human factors management is an essential element of managing safety in rail. I can remember the days when they were finding there that there was a lot of issues that were responsible for train accidents, and it was not just negligent employees or signals not working, but there was an issue related to how the whole human factor issue was managed. Looking at different shifts, looking at the breaks in between operating, and of course, all those issues going back to diets. I know that in the olden days, train drivers were expected to maintain a certain weight.
Absolutely.
So that they can be alert for that. So it's always been a very important issue in the management of safety. But what I'd like to know from my side, whilst we wait for the other questions, is how are you finding the actual implementation of all these plans and programs on the ground? And when you do the investigations of incidents during accidents and you look at all these processes, are you finding that they're being managed well? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mtwa. In a nutshell, I do think that they are being managed well. Human factors management standards and programs are being put in place, so that we're aware of. However, it does still remain a place of contention in terms of how exactly are these management programs established, especially if there's counterintuitive things that are happening within the site that does not necessarily promote human factors management practices. So in that sense, there's a knock-on effect in terms of what is actually being done versus what is being said. There's a knock-on effect in terms of what is understood medically, and there's an incongruency with what is understood medically versus what is actually being done on the ground. So to say we have human factors management standard awareness sessions, that's perfectly and well and good. However, in terms of the stats and what we are seeing is becoming quite problematic because of the rates at which obesity is increasing and diabetes. So it's therefore telling us that there's an issue in terms of understanding and awareness that, for instance, obesity and diabetes as non-communicable diseases are things that can be reversed. But in terms of what I'm proposing is not to sort of have these cumbersome diet plan programs, but instead teaching an individual how to let go of certain eating habits one at a time and replacing them with others. The operator also would have to play an imperative role where management is concerned, specifically like, for instance, having that physical walking site where they can just do simple walks and exercising, lifting up weights, but also encouraging healthy eating. And it would start with sort of reducing the unhealthy eating habits so that there's not an over-reliance on vending machines and tuck shops. Instead, let's sell an apple, let's sell fruits, and let's sell other healthier eating options. Thank you.
Thanks, Kiba. We will now go straight to the next presentation. I'm not sure if the presenter is ready.
Yes, I'm ready.
Oh, you're ready.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, our next presenter, who is also going to be talking on a related topic. The presentation will be the assessment of workload planning and management compliance in the railways. The presenter is Ms. Tunya Maitsie. She's a technical specialist at the Rail Safety Regulator. We see from her bio that she's an ergonomist, a researcher, and writer.